Senator, can you come to the camera, Senator?
Everybody will be very gentle in the way I do this. I'm sorry. I'll save all my apologies upstairs. Anybody who needs an apology after this, I'll give it to you up in my office now. All right.
Okay, no, really.
Because you're the best. No. I am fine. Everyone's here. Somewhere.
Hang on.
So I can walk out with them. That probably be the best. I think we're going to walk out with them. But for now, we're just going here. I would suggest just waiting somewhere else. But when that happens, obviously this is where the balls, and what I'm saying now doesn't really might not apply to me. Yeah, that's it.
Hello. Hey, I just literally 1 second ago.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
All right.
Sarah Mullen, can you come to the cameras? Yeah.
What did you hear in the briefing?
Yeah, first of all, I'm not going to talk about anything that was classified there, so no operational. This was an outstanding coordinated effort by from the intelligence community, to our men and women in uniform. Only the United States can pull this off. And, this is something that should have taken place probably in a previous administration, but only President Trump had the backbone to pull it off, to pull out an indicted illegitimate president that was holding Venezuela hostage. And so glad this took place.
Are you worried about Rivera supposedly told
Sorry, let me go here first.
Are you worried about what's happened with an oil tanker this morning and the Russian response?
No, absolutely not. We're going to control our Western Hemisphere. This is the emphasis that President Trump has put in it. There is not going to be any oil coming in or out of Venezuela without our approval. Yes.
Senator Mullen.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the reporting that we saw that Secretary Rubio had told lawmakers that President Trump wants to purchase Greenland. Can you tell us anything about that at all?
We didn't talk about that in this meeting. I'll keep our. There was no mention of Greenland.
Senator
Yes.
Mullen, can you talk about the plan going forward? Do you feel confident that the administration has the necessary plan in place
Yes.
for what could happen after Maduro is
Absolutely. This was a coordinated effort with months of planning, understanding the contingency plans, the main plan, what happens going in to bring Maduro and his wife to justice, and then what happens with Venezuela moving forward. What we want to do is give the best opportunity for the Venezuelan people to take back their country and put it back in the democracy that they lost 25 years ago. And there is a full plan, full effort. If any Democrat comes to this mic and tells you anything different, obviously I'm not going to get in the details, but they are absolutely lying about it because there was a full, complete brief. I would say probably one of the best briefs I've ever received since I've been in
Do you think there could
Congress.
be elections there soon, and how soon could they be?
I think that'll take some time because the infrastructure hasn't been in place for 25 years, but that's ultimately our goal.
Rodriguez in power. Was
Let me
it
go
worth
here.
risking U.S. troops
Let
to
me go
keep
here and I'll get
Maduro's
to you next.
regime in power?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Was it worth risking U.S. troops' lives to keep Maduro's vice president in
Look,
power?
well, look, our men and women that are in this line of work, this is what they sign up to do. This is what they train to do. This is why we have the best military and the best intelligence community in the world. They thrive to do this kind of work. What we did is we brought an illegitimate president out of Maduro or out of Venezuela, brought him to the United States to hold him accountable for the men and women he's killed on our streets by poisoning them. So it was well worth it. What happens next with the government? We're going to let the Venezuelan people choose that. Yes.
Senator, did you hear anything that would give you an indication that American boots on the ground might be necessary if there are reports of violence sporadically?
There is no boots on the ground right now, but let me tell you, we have contingency plans all around the world just in case something does happen. I'm not speaking specifically to any plan, but I'm just saying that's what we do. We always have contingency plans to keep the American interest and our country safe. And so what I just reiterate this. The president and this administration is putting a heavy emphasis on the Western Hemisphere. For 25 years, we have focused elsewhere. We are now focused in our backyard, and we should be. Yes, ma'am.
Was Cuba discussed at all? What comes next for Cuba?
The only thing that Cuba was not addressed, the only thing was talked about was the Cuban security force that was in ground and what happened when they tried to engage with our men and women, which didn't end up very well for them.
So is
Yes.
the seizing of this Russian-flagged ship a direct challenge to Vladimir Putin?
Well,
Are you
I
worried
would
about
say
how he will
I would say that they claimed it was their ship. That's all I'm going to say. They claimed it was their ship, but obviously they didn't engage because there's a little bit of
But how
gravity
might this
that take place.
How might this be interpreted?
It's not.
So-
We had made it very clear that there was no oil going in and out. This is our hemisphere, not Russia's. If they're going to operate here, we'll know they're operating here, and they will not call our bluff. We will stand up strong to
It's
them.
not just your hemisphere, though, is it?
Well, it's the Western Hemisphere, and there's no Army or Navy that's going to protect it better than we will. We're protecting our interests.
I understand
Russia is not going to operate here open and freely, period.
I understand that.
Yes.
What is your view on Greenland?
That wasn't discussed. Greenland, as I already discussed, I think you made the answer. That wasn't
What do you
discussed.
think should happen?
That's not what this. That was not what this briefing's about. That's not what I'm going to be talking
What do
about.
you
Yes.
think should happen?
Go ahead. Go back. You got a question? I thought I heard you. Yes, go ahead.
Is there a clear plan regarding the means to sever economic ties with China and Russia?
That wasn't discussed, and I don't think we want to sever ties with them. I mean, Russia, we've already pretty much put them in a whole sanction. China, we want to have a relationship. We want to have a relationship with China too, or with Russia too, but we're not going to allow China and Russia to back illegitimate regimes that are a criminal organization.
Was Nicaragua discussed?
That wasn't discussed. Wasn't discussed.
Did they say if the goal of this larger strategy, did they say it to take out the shadow fleet out of operation, or is it just to stop oil leaving?
Well, we've already made the shadow fleet a point of interest. That wasn't discussed in this meeting, but we have made it very clear that the shadow fleet is not going to be operating in our backyard.
So what's the broader strategy? What did they say what is the goal? The
goal is to bring stability to Venezuela and allow Venezuela to be a democracy again. Any oil that we have that we've seized and any oil that we bring in will be used directly for the Venezuela people. It will not go into our treasury. Yes. That'll depend on what's taking place, but I don't think that at this point it's going to be necessary. I don't, it depends on what we're doing. If we're going to an act of war, yes. If we're bringing a stabilizing force, I think the AUMF that's in place will probably be able to be sufficient.
Do you describe this as regime change?
No. What we did is we took out an illegitimate president. He was never duly elected. So there can't be regime change if he should have never been put in place to begin with.
Was his vice president duly elected?
I don't know how their elections happened. I don't know if they're on the same ticket or separate. I don't know how that works, but I know if we were interested in having a full regime change, if we were interested in taking over Venezuela, we would have left our force in place. We had control of what we wanted to. We were there as a law enforcement, and the military was backing up law enforcement to bring a guy who was indicted almost 6 years ago to justice in the United States for killing people on our own streets by poison that he allows to come out of his country.
Was Nicaragua discussed?
It's not ours. We're holding it for the Venezuela people. We're not taking it. We're not going to deposit it. We're going to use it for the Venezuela people. That is not ours. Absolutely, we will not be using. Not $1 will come in to our treasury. It'll be used for the Venezuela people. We are not interested in stealing their oil, taking their oil, anything. If we go in and we partner with them, and we have a partnership like we did a long time ago. I mean, think about Chevron, right? We've had partnerships with Venezuela way before Maduro and his dictatorship or the previous dictatorship came in place. So this isn't, as far as partnerships with American companies, countries all around the world want to partner with American technology because we have the resources, we have the ability to do that. I just came back from the Middle East. I went to 3 countries over there. All 3 countries are wanting to partner with American oil companies because no one does it better and more efficient than us. So if businesses happen in Venezuela, we would love to have that business relationship. It'll all be about supporting the Venezuela people and allow Venezuela to become that example they used to be 25 years ago.
Was Nicaragua discussed in the briefing?
Do what?
President Trump appears to be saying that the U.S. has the right to the oil.
I don't know. You say appears. I can't answer a question on hypothetical questions or what he says it. What he says is that the oil will be used for the Venezuela people. He said that very clear. He's made that very clear. That we've also said that there isn't going to be any sanctioned oil that's going to be feeding China's economy or feeding Cuba's economy. We're not going to allow that to happen. Any oil we get will be taken and be sold on the open market to the people that want the oil to be paying for it on a legal basis. Anything? Yes. Well, she's not a friend of ours. She's made it very clear she's not a friend of ours, but it's a trust but verify. All right, guys?
Was
anything
Nicaragua
else?
Discussed?
Do what?
Was Nicaragua discussed?
No, was not discussed. All right, I'm going to go. See you guys. He's too tall for me to stand by.
Right. How long was he here? Like 20 minutes?
Is there a plan going forward for Venezuela?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, first of all, I just want to say what we heard in there, at some point, a movie ought to be made about the heroics of our military. An operation like this could have never been pulled off in the history of the world by any military on the planet. Pretty exquisite joint force in the middle of the night, no warning. I think it sends a very powerful message to folks around the world, our adversaries around the world, the capabilities of the U.S. military in support of this law enforcement operation. So that's the first thing. I also think, too, having a illegitimate communist dictator who was poisoning our country with drugs, sending criminals to our country, and hosting a playground for our adversaries, especially China, was a very dangerous situation. That has now changed. So the plan moving forward is obviously the focus is on stability, which is why Rodriguez went from VP, was sworn in as the president. But the United States has tremendous leverage right now with the naval quarantine. I mean, they can't get their sanctioned oil out of there unless we let it out of there. And so that's the hope moving forward, that the stability can be brought about and maintained because of the leverage that the United States has right now. And I think that's the best way to describe the plan moving forward.
Some senators are saying that the U.S. administration is winging it when it comes to a plan for Venezuela going forward. Did you get the sense?
I don't think that's fair at all. I actually heard, with Secretary Rubio and others that were in there, if anybody comes out of here saying that they didn't get a clear picture of what this looks like moving forward, they're not being truthful. This is very, I think the planning for this has been very deliberate. What this looks like. Look, there are always contingencies. There certainly are. But if you would have seen, this was not an effort to disrupt their economy or topple a whole regime or an effort to stay there forever. That's not what this is. This was a very specific action in our hemisphere to protect the American people from a dictator who allowed China, Russia, and Iran to have a base of operations not far from our homeland. And so there is a plan moving forward. It's based almost, I think most powerfully on the leverage that we have right now on the oil that is stacking up for them, that they need to get out. And we are the only country in the world that can let that get out.
Where's that oil going, sir? Is that oil going to the Venezuelan people, or is it going to the US?
Yeah, that's the hope. No, this is for the stability of the Venezuelan people. And they've been robbed of that, again, by a communist dictator for far too long. But as an American senator, the interests of the United States of America is my chief concern, and the interests of the United States of America have been furthered here in the Western Hemisphere, not in some far-off place. For 20 years, we're trying to build a Madisonian democracy in the sands of the Middle East or a tribal backwater in our own backyard. And by the way, a throwback to a doctrine that has served this country very well for 200 years, which is the Monroe Doctrine, which is this is our hemisphere. And the American people are safer when you don't have the kind of actors like Maduro.
Does that mean, was it your impression that hemisphere means there could potentially be plans for the same type of thing in other countries beyond Venezuela? Was that discussed?
That wasn't discussed. I would also point out that Colombia is a very different situation than Venezuela, if that's what you're alluding to. But that really wasn't the purpose of this. This really was to go through the operational sophistication there that took place, which I'm obviously not going to share, but then also the broader rationale, which I think they answered all the questions that were asked. Now, Democrats, I'm sure, are going to come out here and say they have more questions than answers. That's just political posturing. What we heard in there was a very professional team that did something that, again, nobody in the history of the world could pull off, and we did that.
Did Greenland come up at all, sir? Did Greenland come up at all?
Not in.
Do you have a personal opinion on that? Are you concerned about military action in Greenland?
I personally think that we ought to be active in pursuing Greenland. Absolutely. I think if you acquiring Greenland is be my support. I would support that. That's not what anybody's talking about. First of all, Denmark's claims are nebulous. People sort of skip over that page in history of their claims to Greenland. But I would fully be supportive of Greenland being a much more integral partner of the United States of America. If you look at a globe from on top, all of our defense of the Western Hemisphere, of the homeland, whether it's ballistic missile defense or in space, Greenland has an incredible strategic value and the critical minerals there. The other thing I would point out, China and Russia are operating off the coast of Greenland. Denmark is not capable of protecting Greenland. And so, in my view, we have a very keen interest in Greenland.
Denmark is willing to work with the U.S. Why does the U.S. have to own it? Denmark. Denmark is willing to work
Denmark's
with the US.
not capable of the protection that we need for our country. That's the problem.
Cooperate with the U.S.
Well, my suggestion for Denmark would be to go to their European partners and actually have this much energy about the defense of their own continent. How about protecting your own continent instead of relying on the United States, which has happened, by the way, for decades now? Many of those countries are total freeloaders of American security. The president has made it very clear. We have expectations of what you're going to spend on your own national defense. What you're seeing is a very clear pivot from some of the concerns that have been around this town, permanent Washington, for a long time, this obsession with Europe. NATO has a very important role. They have to step up in a much more meaningful way for their own continent while we focus on the Western Hemisphere and the Indo-Pacific. If you read the national security document that just came out, that makes it very clear what the United States plan are. What's that? Who?
Do you think America
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about NATO countries no longer being freeloaders of American
So
taxpayers.
the UK and NATO.
Are there any other?
So
are
the
there any other
UK
questions?
helped out with the
What
operation.
this means for the stability of Cuba.
Well, I think Cuba certainly took notice of what happened, and if the American people didn't know then, they know now that the Cuban security forces were very much involved in what was going on in Venezuela. So,
So
I'm
you're-
sure they're paying attention.
Did the
So you're
briefing
saying
discuss
that NATO
possible action in Cuba or
No.
Nicaragua?
So you're saying that NATO are freeloaders, but the UK, as I understand, helped out in a significant way with the seizing of this tanker, this Russian.
What I'm talking
tanker.
about is
What
their
do you-
percentage of their GDP spent, and I'm not, percentage of GDPs aren't munitions. Munitions win wars. So the deindustrialization, this is sort of a side issue, but the deindustrialization that's happened in Europe, and including in Germany, has really hurt Europe's ability to defend itself and produce things to defend itself. That has to change. If Putin is actually Hitler, you would think there'd be a greater sense of urgency on the continent, and we haven't seen that. Now, I will say there's been positive move forward in this term with President Trump. They are committed to that, but it can't be for pensions. It can't be for pensions. It's got to be for munitions. And so that's the kind of partnership that the United States of America is looking for with our European allies. It's not adversarial. It's just say, hey, we have big concerns in the world that center on the homeland in the Western Hemisphere, as demonstrated in the past week, and also the rise of China. Those are their biggest strategic imperatives. And so, again, it just calls for Europe to step up in a more meaningful way than they have before. Thank you very much.
Senator.
We need to reset. I need this group here to step back and around. I'm sorry, this is my last position. All of you have to go back around. Yep, you'll have to move. I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Well, he wasn't. Come on, man. This is set. This cannot move. These
having cake? What's that? What's that? No.
Senator Paul, are you?
We probably don't want to call people over, right? Oh, I just thought. Do we not want to call people over? Yeah. Is it Rubio coming? Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably coming here now. I mean, this is an insane plan. They are talking about stealing the Venezuelan oil at gunpoint for a period of time undefined as leverage to micromanage the country. I mean, the scope and insanity of that plan is absolutely stunning. So we learned a lot. I'm glad we had the briefing, but this is going to be a very, very rough ride for the United States. They're going to take the oil.
How? By force?
By force, of course. An embargo is an act of force. They are going to take the oil for as long as is necessary in order to try to facilitate regime change in Venezuela.
Is that what the Republicans have told us, that they have a plan for the stability of the country? Is that the plan?
I heard no detailed plan. Obviously, things are getting more chaotic in Venezuela as the hours proceed. Their plan seems to be to steal the oil and use the leverage over the oil to try to micromanage the country on a day-to-day basis. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. It is just slightly different than the mistakes we made in Iraq and Afghanistan. There, we used our military as a means to try to micromanage the country. They waited us out, and as soon as we left, chaos erupted. Why would it be any different under these circumstances? They will wait us out, and as soon as the Navy leaves, as soon as the blockade ends, we will be back in the same situation that we began. It does not appear that we are learning any lessons.
Military action when it was Senator Welch. They talk about military action about Greenland specifically.
Well, I can't answer that directly, but a lot of opposition is expressed about that. But there's three things. First of all, this is an extraordinary military operation, but it was in service of what really appears to be a neocon fantasy. And that is that we will run Venezuela. We'll have access to their oil. And how did that work out in Iraq? How did it work out in Afghanistan? So that's the question that hasn't been answered. Second, it's great Maduro's in jail in Manhattan, but Madurismo is totally intact in Venezuela. His hand-picked vice president is in charge. His very repressive interior minister is now on the rampage, repressing any kind of opposition. So there's a fair question. What have we accomplished? We've gotten rid of Maduro. He's in jail, but everything Maduro created, his drug operations, his repression, his anti-Americanism, is all totally intact.
Senator Welch, should Democrats use the appropriations process as a way to force congressional oversight in the next steps with Venezuela or Greenland or other places?
I totally support that. That's what policy is about. That's what the appropriations process is about. Whether we have the votes remains to be seen, but I totally believe there should not be support financially from the American taxpayer for another for another war that's in this case about oil.
Would that mean shutting the government down?
Clarify what you said at the top. It's unclear. You're saying because they're raising the specter of a military operation to acquire Greenland. Did that come up in there, and what are they planning on doing?
We don't know, but I'm worried.
Did you hear a plan about a change to democracy?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you hear a plan about how Venezuela could move towards democracy?
We heard aspirations about how it could move to, quote, stabilization, but the reality is the entire Maduro apparatus is still intact. And we know every regime is, if about nothing else, it's about self-preservation. So the United States has a lot of leverage with the oil blockade, but does that mean it has control? So what you have here is a situation where everyone is in great admiration of the capacity of our military and how they did something that was extraordinarily dangerous and complicated. But there is no answer about what comes next. Maduroismo is totally intact, and there is not a developed plan about what's going to happen. Now, the final point I want to make is that everything we heard in there, the American people should be hearing. There's no justification that anything that was said there shouldn't be said in an open hearing where the American public has total access to this major decision that has been made where we are in another combat situation.
Should Europe be worried about America's intentions?
Pardon me?
Should Europe be worried about America's intentions?
Europe is worried about America's intentions. Thanks.
Yeah, Tim and I made it clear that the public needs answers. Across America, people are just saying, what the hell is going on? We need answers as to how long this is going to last. We need answers to how many troops, how much money, are there guardrails, things we don't do. And a number of things that we had talked about were very troubling. There's a real, I am totally dissatisfied about their answers of going into other countries, totally dissatisfied of what they might be doing in Greenland, as well as in Colombia, Mexico, and other countries. And we're also totally dissatisfied about succession. They're relying to help them run Venezuela, help Trump run Venezuela, of the most unreliable, corrupt people who hate America. So this is fraught with peril. The American people, the public, not just in a classified room, the American people need answers. Tim.
And I'll just say this, and we've got the two cabinet secretaries here, and they heard what I said in that room. We are 4 months into a sustained military operation. More than 200, quote, enemies have been killed. American troops have been injured. We have the U.S. forces arrayed around Venezuela, but neither the House nor the Senate have been willing to hold a single public hearing to put these facts before the public. Why not? We need to start doing our job. What they will do is get us in a classified setting where the leader of the Senate says, this is not for public consumption. And so the questions that we have about the legal rationale, we cannot discuss in public. The questions we have about the strategic rationale, we cannot discuss in public. About the targeting criteria, we cannot discuss in public. About what's next, is Greenland next, is Colombia or Mexico or Cuba next, it's very hard to discuss in public. We've got to get this discussion out of the skiff and into the public before it's too late.
The reason we need hearings, public hearings, is the Founding Fathers, when they gave the Congress the power to make war, knew that this is such a powerful and fraught with peril issue, making war, that a public discussion was required. They're avoiding all public discussion. To talk to us in the skiff, where we didn't get adequate answers even to our questions, but not let the American people know what they're doing, when it's the American people who have always paid the price when we try to do this regime change in blood and treasure. We need answers. We need answers to these questions, and we need them made publicly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's hold in place, please.
Where does this end?
I'm against everything he said. So.
Why are you saying this behind closed doors?
Well, there's a lot of operational details that can't be discussed publicly, obviously, for obvious reasons. So as we move forward, we'll describe our process, which is a threefold process in Venezuela. I've described it to them now. Step one is the stabilization of the country. We don't want it descending into chaos. Part of that stabilization, and the reason why we understand and believe that we have the strongest leverage possible, is our quarantine. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and, in fact, about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. So we have a lot of leverage to move on the stabilization front. The second phase will be a phase that we call recovery, and that is ensuring that American, Western, and other companies have access to the Venezuelan market in a way that's fair. Also, at the same time, begin to create the process of reconciliation nationally within Venezuela, so that the opposition forces can be amnestied and released and from prisons or brought back to the country and begin to rebuild civil society. And then the third phase, of course, will be one of transition. Some of this will overlap. I've described this to them in great detail. We'll have more detail in the days to follow. But we feel like we're moving forward here in a very positive way.
How long will this take, Secretary? Some senators who were in that briefing describing your operation variously as that you're winging it, that there's no plan for Venezuela going forward.
Yeah, I know. They're going to say that. I used to be a senator, too. That's what you always say when it's the other party. The bottom line is we've gone into great detail with them about the planning. We've described it to them. In fact, it's not just winging it. It's not just saying or speculating it's going to happen. It's already happening. Like the oil arrangement that we've made with PDVSA on their sanctioned oil that they can't move. Understand, they are not generating any revenue from their oil right now. They can't move it unless we allow it to move because we have sanctions, because we're enforcing those sanctions. This is tremendous leverage. We are exercising it in a positive way. The President described it last night. Secretary Wright will have more to say on it today, who is involved in running this portfolio. And we feel very positive that not only will that generate revenue that will be used to the benefit of the Venezuelan people, and we're ensured that that's what the case is, but it also gives us an amount of leverage and influence and control over how this process moves forward.
Mr. Secretary, on Denmark, sir. Mr. Secretary, on Denmark. Why is the administration not taking Denmark's offer to discuss the situation in Greenland? And
I'll be meeting with them next week.
But will you take military intervention off the table?
I'm not here to talk about Denmark or military intervention. I'll be meeting with them next week. We'll have those conversations with them then. And but I'm not having anything further to add to that
Can
today.
you clarify your comments to lawmakers? Does the U.S. intend to buy Greenland? Does the U.S. intend to buy Greenland? Can you clarify your comments to lawmakers this week?
Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term, and he's not the first U.S. president that has examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland. There's an interest there. But so I just reminded them of the fact that not only did Truman want to do it, but President Trump's been talking about this since his first term.
What? He made a statement last night saying that the military option...
You've lost, he's lost a lot of weight. Good job, man.
They said the military option is on the table. So is the administration really willing to risk the NATO alliance by potentially moving ahead
Guys,
military operations?
What I think the White House said yesterday is what I will tell you now, and I've always said. The president always retained the option. Every president, not this president, every president always retains the option. I'm not talking about Greenland. I'm just talking about globally. If the president identifies a threat to the national security of the United States, every president retains the option to address it through military means. As a diplomat, which is what I am now, and what we work on, we always prefer to settle it in different ways. That included in Venezuela. We tried repeatedly to reach an outcome here that did not involve having to go in and grab an indicted drug trafficker. Those were unsuccessful, unfortunately.
The people of Venezuela are waking up to the same regime. Do you not worry about that?
Well, first of all, the bottom line is that there is a process now in place where we have tremendous control and leverage over what those interim authorities are doing and are able to do. But obviously this will be a process of transition. In the end, it will be up to the Venezuelan people to transform their country. We are prepared under the right conditions, using the leverage that we have, which includes the fact that they cannot move any oil unless we allow them to move it to... Well, again, I'm not going to give you a timeline on it. We want it to move as soon as possible. But We didn't expect this would. It's been 3 days since this happened, 4 days since this happened. So I understand that in this cycle and society we now live in, everyone wants instant outcomes. They want it to happen overnight. It's not going to work that way. But we're already seeing progress with this new deal that's been announced and more deals to follow. You're already seeing how the leverage the United States has over those interim authorities is going to begin to lead to positive outcomes. It doesn't cost us. It doesn't cost us.
The involvement, the U.S. involvement in Venezuela, how much will it cost?
Well, it isn't going to cost us any money. For example, this oil deal that's happening doesn't cost us any money. On the contrary, and if it opens up,
no money to
well, these look, I can't. I don't have the numbers. What operation are you talking about? The entire thing?
Yeah.
Well, these troops are going to be deployed. None of these troops sit in a dry dock waiting for action. They're deployed somewhere in the world. If they're not here, they're somewhere else. Just today, our forces not deployed to the Caribbean seized a boat, a sanctioned boat tied to the IRGC that tried to flee from us. That happened somewhere else. We are constantly involved in action. We have boats in the Mediterranean. We have ships in the Middle East. We have ships in the Indo-Pacific. These ships, if they weren't in the Caribbean, they'd be somewhere else conducting activity. Yeah. That's what the Navy does.
I want to emphasize that. Question from CNN. The question is never asked how much does it cost when they're in the Mediterranean or the Red Sea or the Indian Ocean or the Pacific. But now that they're in our hemisphere, on a counter-cartel mission or ensuring that an indicted individual comes to justice, now you're asking the question of cost. It's a disingenuous question to begin with. You're trying to find any angle possible to undermine the success of one of the most historic military missions the world has ever seen. The level of sophistication that Senate just was briefed on and the House was briefed on, a classified level, is something only the United States of America can accomplish. The world is taking notice of that. Certainly Venezuela is taking notice of that. And it continues because 2 oil tankers, 2 overnight, were seized by the United States of America, stateless or sanctioned, because the oil blockade, the quarantine of oil out of unsanctioned or stateless, sanctioned or stateless vessels continues. That leverage will continue, as Secretary Rubio outlined. So our military is prepared to continue this. As he said, the president, when he speaks, he means it. He's not messing around. We are an administration of action to advance our interests, and that is on full display. We're happy to brief the House.
No. 2 quick things. Okay, number one, because we have to go, because we got to brief the House, and if we don't, and they're pissed at us, you guys better defend us. That was because we were talking to you. I would make one more point, and it's a very interesting point. One of those ships that were seized that had oil in the Caribbean, you know what the interim authorities are asking for in Venezuela? They want that oil that was seized to be part of this deal. They understand that the only way they can move oil and generate revenue and not have economic collapse is if they cooperate and work with the United States, and that's what we see are going to happen. We got to go talk to the House, guys.
Is it a challenge to Vladimir Putin? That was a Russian flag tanker.
We both were, yeah. I was